Hey friends, I'm Mel. Today I'm so pleased to be part of a fall soup collab hosted by my friend Katt from Southern Farming Kitchen. I'll be sure to link her channel and the playlist down in my description box. Thanks so much, Katt, for hosting. I can't wait to see all the fall soups that are going to be in the playlist. Today, the first soup that I'm going to be making is a chicken gnocchi soup. But before that, I'm going to show you how I make homemade bread. You start out by preheating your oven to 175 degrees, and then I'm spraying 2 bread pans with some non-stick cooking spray. This is actually a cheat. I'm using the frozen bread dough that you can find in the freezer section at your grocery store. This is also what I made Dollywood Cinnamon Bread out of. I'll link that in the description box and put a card up for you in case you haven't seen that recipe. I'm using the speed thawing method, and I'm just going to spray some plastic wrap with a little non-stick spray and just very loosely lay it over the top of this frozen dough that's in the pan. Once your oven is preheated to 175, you're just going to cut your oven off and stick both of your bread pans down in there. This is going to help the bread to thaw and rise. And you want to watch it carefully because you don't want it to rise any more than about an inch above the pan, and it will rise this method a lot quicker than you think. I would start checking it at about an hour and a half. And then you just very carefully take that plastic wrap off, and you're going to leave your bread in the oven. Set it for 350 degrees and cook it about 25 to 30 minutes. This bread cooks up so good. It tastes just like homemade bread that you've spent hours on working on your dough. I'm just not good at that. I wish that I was. I just have never had any luck at it. So this is my quote unquote homemade bread. I love to have this with soup or just any time. It's beautiful. When it comes out, I like to take a little butter and rub over it while it's still warm. And we're just going to let that cool now for a little bit. I'm very thankful to my daughter's boyfriend who was here this day. He did all of my chopping and prep work for me, and he also filmed this soup video for me on his very nice camera. So thank you so much for doing that for me. Y'all don't get too used to this beautiful camera work. This was all him. Now I have heated some oil in my big soup pot, and I'm putting in about a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breasts cut up into bite-sized pieces, and I've added a little garlic and some salt and pepper. And I am going to fry this up, making sure that it's cooked all the way through. This soup, once you get the chicken cooked, comes together very quickly. You could even cook your chicken in the Crockpot all day if you're going to be gone to work and come back in and just make it right from that, and you wouldn't have to fool with this step at all. I do add just a little bit of flour because I wanted it to try to thicken up my soup just a little bit and coat that chicken. Gives it a wonderful flavor. And once my chicken is done, I'm going to add in my diced up celery and my carrots. Going to cook that up until it's just beginning to get nice and soft. Once those are to my liking, I'm going to add in 2.5 cups of milk, and then 1.5 cups of heavy cream. The recipe calls for 3 bouillon cubes, but I'm using Better Than Bouillon based. and I'm going to add some more salt and pepper. I'm going to heat that up just until it comes to a boil and everything gets nice and warm. This is a wonderful recipe that is based off of the Olive Garden Chicken Gnocchi Soup. I saw this soup on my friend Angie's channel. Her channel name is If the Creek Don't Rise. I'll be sure to link her channel and a link to this recipe in the description box as well. This was a delicious soup. This is the first time I've ever used gnocchi, and it is much easier to just take it and get it apart with your fingers before you put it in the soup, instead of trying to get it apart in there like I did. But you're going to add your gnocchi, and I used just one package, and I did use more spinach than the recipe called for because I love spinach, and it was frozen, and I just cooked it up in the microwave a little bit and drained it and putting it in. I felt like my soup was getting a little thick, so you could either add chicken broth or in my case, I just put some more milk in there because I do love a good creamy soup. This was the first time I've ever made this soup, and I think I've made it once more since then. It was delicious. I thank you so much, Angie, for introducing me to this recipe. And here is the wonderful bread. It just slices up so beautifully. This is great to make big sandwiches on, just to have as bread for dinner. It's wonderful to dip in this soup. I hope that you guys will enjoy this frozen bread dough as much as I have. I make good use of this stuff. So after my soup has sit probably 10 or 15 more minutes, it's ready to go. This is so yummy, so flavorful. Just all of the heavy cream and the garlic and the spinach. This is so wonderful. Cozy comfort fall meals. I can't wait for a snowy day to make this again. And now I'm going to have a Crockpot sweet potato stew. I had been wanting to make this recipe for a couple years and just never got around to it. It is delicious, and it's such simple ingredients that you would probably have most of this on hand. I do use just a lean stew beef, a couple of sweet potatoes. This one calls for, beef bouillon, and just some canned veggies and pantry staple veggies that you're probably going to have, and just a few simple seasonings, but it comes together with just the best flavor. The first thing that I'm doing is chopping up my sweet potatoes. Called for about 2 medium-sized potatoes. And the sweet potatoes give this just a little different taste than a regular beef stew. It's so savory. And I use frozen diced onions in a lot of my soups and casseroles, but when I'm having a beef stew, I like my onions to be cut up a little bit bigger. I like to keep everything kind of the same size, vegetable-wise, when I'm making a stew. So I'm even taking my little baby carrots and cutting them into some smaller pieces too. I didn't put celery in this because I'm not a huge celery fan, and I don't put it in my regular beef stew either. So I left that out, but feel free to put that in if you want to. So now I'm just going to take about 3 tablespoons of just regular old flour. I'm going to throw that in a baggie, and then I'm going to put my stew meat down in there and get it coated really well. You don't have to brown your meat up beforehand, but I was here and had the time to do it before I put it in the crock pot, and I do like to put a brown on my meat if I have the time. It's going to cook up fine if you just coat it in the flour and put it in the crock pot, but I do like to do this step if I have time. And I'll season it up with some salt and pepper as well. And I'm just going to coat both sides Season both sides, brown all the sides of it to the best that I can. While we've got our meat browning, we'll go ahead, spray our crock pot, put in all of our veggies we've chopped up, put in a can of drained whole kernel sweet corn, a can of peeled and diced tomatoes, and then once I've got my meat all browned up on each side, I'm just going to go ahead and add it and all the drippings from my pan into my crock pot. And I'm going to use about a half a teaspoon of paprika, I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons of some parsley. That gives it a wonderful flavor and some real pretty color to this stew. And I am going to do a teaspoon of Worcestershire is what it calls for. That just didn't seem like enough, so I did even more dashes here than I'm showing on camera. I probably put a good bit more. Calls for 2 beef bouillon cubes, and I have the powder, so I am putting 2 of those in, and then a cup of water. I'm going to stir all that together really good. And you can cook this on low for about 7 to 9 hours. Cook it on high for 5 to 7. Mine did not take near that long because I had a really good sear started on my meat. This stew smelled so wonderful when we came in that evening. This was so hearty and flavorful. The colors in this stew was beautiful. This is another one that I just can't wait for cold weather to get here so we can enjoy this with a big old piece of cornbread. It was delicious. Friends, thank you so much for joining me in the kitchen today. I hope you enjoy these soups. Do not forget, this is part of a fall soup collab hosted by Katt at Southern Farming Kitchen. Be sure to go down into the description box, check out the playlist. Until I see you next time, I send you love from my kitchen.